Hello everybody and welcome. Thought I would share a latest addition to my shop. Here I have a Stanley number 75 Bullnose Rabbet plane, and you can see by the steel rule next to it, it's just a skosh over 4 inches long, about an inch wide, and there it is referenced against an American quarter to give you an idea how big it is. I don't know a lot about this particular model. It has a very unusual logo on it. In my limited research, I haven't found a logo quite like this, although it strikes me as very old, so I'm kind of excited. It says on the top of it, Stanley Rule. Then in the center of it, there's a dashed line with an ampersand, and then in the lower left, it says level. And I suspect in the lower right, there's supposed to be a CO for company, and I don't think that came through on the original stamp, or it's been worn away and lost to time. So we'll give it a quick disassembly. Take out the lever cap. Seems to be an S casting on the back side of it. Being a rabbet plane, the iron slides out the bottom. Screw looks as though the washer is made of brass. And there's the top. There's an S casting in the body here, and there's an S casting in the sole. And from this angle you can see the S on the underside of the lever cap, the S on the top half of the body, and the S on the sole. And this washer here appears to be made of brass, and it's definitely not magnetic. And for completeness, here's just a view of the other side. Bottom of the sole looks a little not so smooth. The top of the body, the sides seem particularly rough. I don't know if I can get the light on that just right, but kind of a terrible casting by modern standards anyway. And this side is similar, just not very smooth. The lever cap has an interesting profile on the top, and the lever cap screw is just tiny. The iron seems particularly dull and has a nick in it right there. So that's going to take some work to get all that out, get him nice and sharp. So I've cleaned this up a little bit, and I've had an opportunity to see better examples of this guy, pictures of it. And I realized that this was japanned, which I hadn't noticed before, but there's traces of japanning in here, and down here on the underside of the top here I can see a little bit of a shiny black. I don't see any on the outside, and on this piece I see little bits of japanning on the edges of this post in the middle and in the corners here. And this screw, a little chowdered up on the top, but it's very square shoulders, and in pretty good shape other than a little bit of a distortion up here in the slot. And this screw, it's got a really cool cross section. Comes to flattening the back, I'm going to try to be careful and only hit about the last quarter inch or so. It doesn't seem terribly flat up on the very edge, almost like somebody did a back bevel on it. I think I might be flat enough. There's a little bit of pitting up at the tip, but I got a large nick over here that's going to have to come out. So I got it in the jig, and you can see we're wearing away the heel, which means I have a long way to go. I got to wear away this entire heel before I make it to the very tip, and then I have to grind away a fair amount of the tip to get these divots out. Okay, I've been at this for 10 minutes. I have a nice flat bevel on that. You can see up here all the steel that I wore away. That's a little depressing, but a couple nicks up here. I can feel quite a burr up here, and I'm not quite sure. I have all the pits out at the very tip of the iron, and on this side there's some schmutz, and I'm not sure if those are significant or not. Well, I think I've finally established a good primary bevel. I had 2 pits about evenly spaced. One of them was about right here, and there's another one about right here. I still see some remnants of this one, but I don't think it's affecting the cutting edge at the moment. I went slow and steady because this is an iron that I'm trying to remove as little material as I have to. So I did it the old-fashioned way on the diamond stone. It took me, over the course of a couple days, well over an hour. I had to stop yesterday and go get some dinner. If the light catches it, you can see that's nice and flat. And that's a good sharp edge to about 400 grit. So it's not polished, but certainly sharp enough to hurt yourself if you're not careful. If this was an iron I didn't care so much about, I would have taken it over to a more aggressive bench grinder to get past the pitting and establish the primary bevel. What I ended up doing was aggressively grinding the bevel side and going more after the flat side of the iron, trying to get those pits out. So I removed a little more material here than I hoped I needed to, but it's good and flat now, and that angle is looking pretty good. So the primary bevel has been established at about 400 grit. This stone is 730 grit, and you just have to hone it on the stone to get the 400 grit striations out of the two surfaces. So it doesn't take very long at this point. This red side of the water stone is about 1000 grit. And the lighter side of this stone is 6000 grit. This is the suede side of the strop. Just going to drag it, I don't know, 20 times or so, somewhere between 12 and 30. And finally we'll go to the fine side, the leather side of the strop, and do the same thing. So the question is, did we succeed? And I'd say that's pretty sharp. And of course we have the who needs their hair and their skin trick. And that's pretty good. Pretty smooth. Get the dirt off. Excellent. Well, I have an interesting update that I would like to share. The cast parts that I told you about before have an S cast into them. I went onto a Facebook group, people that know a lot about Stanley tools, and I asked the question if the S, which was cast into this, was consistent with the Stanley Bailey Type 7s, which also have an S cast into the parts. There it is on the frog, and here's on the lever cap. And they came back and said, yes, it's the same S in the same time period. So this little guy here was made somewhere in the area of 1893 to 1899, give or take a year or two, which coincidentally puts this as a Type 1 for this type of plane, meaning this was the very beginning of when Stanley came out and made these number 75 planes. So this is basically Stanley's first crack at it. I mean, how cool is that? One thing I will try to do is the back side of this brass washer looks pretty brassy. Top side, not so much so. But I'm going to just take a pencil eraser, see if I can rub off some of this patina. I can actually use an eraser to get brass pretty shiny. It's not really my goal. I'm just trying to rub some of the dirt off so that the patina remains. Things you can do with a pink pearl. The bullnose front here is supposed to sit a little high compared to the sole. That's a pretty gosh darn heavy cut. That is really heavy. Oops. Alright, that didn't work. Yeah, that's about 20 thousandths. Yeah, and it's working well as kind of a block plane of sorts. Put a chamfer on it. Getting a nice cut on that one. So I've spent a little more time fiddling with this off camera, and I think I'm going to need to spend a lot more time with this guy to understand the nuances of how to use it. Right now I have it set for a pretty light cut, which is the way I like them. I think like many tools in the shop, especially the more unusual ones, they don't seem very useful until they prove to be the perfect tool for the task at hand. And I'm looking forward to using this guy. It's kind of nifty that the iron sits a little bit proud of the plane itself, so you should be able to get really clean dados and such like that with a tool like this. It doesn't have the fine-tune adjustability of a Bailey style plane, so I think this is one of those where getting the super duper fine shavings isn't so much the task. Well, I think I'm done with this little guy for now. Still going to have to spend some time learning how to use it. I decided to keep the patina on it. I happen to think it's good looking. A lot of tools, they're not chrome plated, develop this wonderful patina. If you've seen other videos of mine, you know I'm a bit of a fan of magnetite. I'm still going to have to spend some time learning how to use it, develop the nuances for it, but I think it's going to be a nice little addition to the shop, and perhaps you'll see it in a future video. Well, as always, I hope you got something out of this video. I appreciate you coming by. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment. You know I love to read them. And as always, keep your eyes out for the next one.